What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and let's get into our instant reactions for Week 3, Sunday night of the XFL. And can I just say that I really enjoyed watching a bunch of blowout games? Yeah, that's right. Usually blowouts suck to watch, and these were fun. Now, the only type of blowouts that I usually like are when my favorite teams are winning by a lot, and I can just sit there and enjoy the game and not have to be on the edge of my seat and really intent into the game and watching it and be all nervous. And so I really love those games. But usually if it's a blowout, that's right, this guy is usually churning the channel. So listen, I enjoyed these games. I thought that for blowouts they were fun. And it just goes to show you that, listen, the XFL is wide open. Here, after 2 weeks, we thought we had it all figured out, and I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. But what we figured out is that the XFL is wide open. This is anybody's game still. I still think after 3 weeks, the way that the Vipers played, and they gave the undefeated Houston Roughnecks a run for their money, that, listen, they could easily be back in this thing. I mean, the reality of it is there are only 2 games back, and I get it. It's a 10-week season, but we've got 7 games left to get through. It's crazy. We're not even halfway through there. We're only 30% of the way through, and I am loving every minute of it. I'm enjoying it. Now, granted, I'm a big football fan. Now, I know that the XFL is not for some of you. And listen, I understand that, but I will say this. I at least appreciate you for watching and trying it out instead of just making up your mind like some people do that it's going to be bad without even trying it out. So I appreciate you at least trying it. I feel like I'm like a parent and talking to my kids for, trying some food that they don't like, or don't want to eat. But regardless of that, I do appreciate you guys trying out the XFL. And listen, it's not for everybody, and these were 2 blowout games. But they were fun to watch. I thought it was fantastic. The attendance, it looks like it's going to be up again this week. Now, I haven't looked at the actual numbers for the LA game. I kind of looked a little bit online. I didn't see anything yet. So we'll probably find some things out and talk about that probably tomorrow. But if you kind of put the stats together, there's a very good shot that the XFL did again add to their attendance. So their attendance weekly has been growing, which is not what you normally see with startups. Startups, you usually see this big hump at the beginning and then it tails off as you go. And the XFL, they've been growing each week, and it's looking like that they're going to grow again this week. So let's go ahead and let's look back at it. The Tampa Bay game, we were all surprised. We thought that they weren't going to have a whole lot of people. They had over 18,000 people. It was officially reported that they had. And then you add in the over 22,000 people that they had in Seattle. So they had 41,000 people at the games on Saturday. And listen, those were both fun games on Saturday. Those were fun football games. And tonight's games were fun for different reasons, and we'll go ahead and we'll talk about those when we get into the games. But it was great football atmosphere in both stadiums, and both were really good games and lived up to it, and they had 41,000 people there. It looks like that they had a complete sellout there in St. Louis tonight. The place was rocking. It was awesome. Back and forth, you could hear them chanting BattleHawks. It was great. It was rocking in that place. They had officially over 29,000 people there. You add those two together, that's over 70,000 people. That means that if the LA game had over 10,000 people, that's over 80,000 people in attendance this week for XFL games. And that's huge. That's huge for a startup. And again, like I said, that's increasing week by week by week. And it just goes to show you that the product on the field that they're putting out there, people are loving it. It has been fantastic to watch. It has been fun, and they're creating a great atmosphere. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into that with it. And listen, I know I've kind of gone off and already into the video, and hopefully you guys are liking that. And I forgot to even say anything about subscribing. So you know the whole drill. If you like the stuff, subscribe. I'd really appreciate that if you would. It helps me out, and it helps the channel out. And leave me those comments down in the comment section. And first and foremost, before we get into anything, I want to do a shout out to D1 for And if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, good night, man. I told you, I'm terrible, terrible, terrible at names. But I can at least admit when I was wrong. And listen, this week I was totally wrong about everything, so I might as well be wrong about names. Hey, just par for the course this Sunday. That's just kind of what I'm feeling like, so I'm just going to say sorry all across the board. So, D1, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I apologize, man, but I do appreciate you, and I appreciate what you're saying to me. So, D1, he leaves me a comment, said, sup, man. My man wanted to send a message to you to inform you of the mispronunciation of the BattleHawks QB. You're pronouncing it Ta'amau, but the correct pronunciation is Ta'amu. Or, I think it's Ta'amu. I think they were saying Ta'amu. Hopefully, I think that's right. So it's Ta'amu. Good night. I am terrible. I think they were saying Ta'amu for most of the game with that. Hopefully one of those are right. Like I said, I'm just totally wrong. But man, I appreciate you correcting me. And listen, leave me some good comments down in the comment section, and I will definitely try to get those into a video, especially if you guys perk my interest and come up with some great questions and some great stuff. I do really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and let's transition into the games, because this is where all the fun happened. And in the first game, it was a fun game. I enjoyed it, but not for really football reasons. Now, granted, there was some really good football on one side of the ball, but not necessarily so much on the other side. The BattleHawks won 29-9, and that was not the story of the game. The story of the game was that St. Louis, from the beginning to the end of the game, were rocking on all facets of the game. We got our very first XFL kickoff return for a touchdown, and it was electric. I love the reverse. I love the way they did it. I love the way that they ran it back, and man, was it fun to watch. That place was roaring, and then when they scored that, it went up exponentially. It was crazy in there. That place was rocking. The Guardians had a hard time figuring out what was going on. Like I said, it was just one of those things to where I'm looking at this thing, and I'm just like, that place has got to be so loud in there because they can't even make any calls. They're having a hard time. I mean, you could hear the crowd noise, and like even when they weren't trying to really pop in the crowd noise. Now, I will put a comment in here with that. I do not like, they were talking about how they had the quarterback over like the announce system with his calls or something, and I think that must have been that was a miscommunication, because I think after they started getting the game going, that didn't happen as much. But as I'm, listening to that, I don't like that. It was really distracting, and it was hard to hear. It was really echoey too. It was kind of weird, and I think that might have hurt them earlier on. I think they had a false start or two because of it. So I didn't like that. Now let's go ahead and let's get back to the game itself. Man, St. Louis came out and did what they were going to do, and they were going to run the ball, and they ran the ball down New York's throats, and New York they couldn't do anything about it. They came out and did that, and if you had any question of whether or not New York was a good team or a bad team, I think this solidified it for us. New York is a bad team, and I don't think that they're going to be able to be fixed. Now, granted, sorry about that. Now, granted, again, we're in week 3, and we've only seen 3 games. But the dysfunction that is there in that team is just crazy, to where their offense was just terrible, and I think that it's just, I don't know how you right that ship. But let's go ahead and let's talk about the BattleHawks, because, man, all facets of the game, whether it be defense, whether it be offense, running the ball, throwing the ball. So let's look at this. Ta'amu, he was 12 for 18, 67% completion ratings. He only had 119 yards passing, but listen, the guy didn't need to throw the ball. They ran the heck out of the ball. They ran all over the stinking field. Jones, almost. I was wanting you. I was hoping that you would get 100 yards and you only had 95. Had you guys not have ran up the score so early, you might have gotten more carries. I don't know, but he had that 47-yard of the touchdown. That was fantastic to see him. Christine Michaels, you got in the game and you ran hard. You tailed off towards the end there with it. But man, early on in that first half, if he could run like that, I'm like, good night. This boy can run. That first touchdown run he had, that was the hardest running I've seen from him, and that was some good stuff. It tailed off towards the end as they went. They didn't need to do a whole lot here. New York pretty much gave the game over to them. New York's pretty much just said, here's the game. We don't really want it, and you can have it. And I will say that this shows the difference in coaching. This New York team. So you saw DC defenders get totally annihilated, okay? And you saw Tampa Bay lose yesterday. Tampa Bay's 0-3. And I have to give respect to Tressman and Jerry Glanville and all of them over there because they've held this team together, and I think that that team is starting to figure some things out. And who knows, Aaron Murray can maybe pull them together, and they can pull off some wins this season. The Guardians, I just don't see it there. From what I've seen with Gilbride and his staff, one, they do not have their players under control. Two, I don't think that their players are buying into the system. From the body language of Matt McGloin and some of those other players on that team, especially like some of the guys on the O-line, I don't think that they really buy into the system that's there. And in all honesty, neither does this guy. I don't like their system that they're running. I think that they're running an old archaic system. They're trying to kind of add a little modern nuances to an old system back from, the era back when they won their Super Bowl championships. And listen, those days are long gone. You've got to adjust, and I just don't think that they're adjusting. Now, I will say something for them going forward here. Luis Perez, if you ask me, is the best option that you have at quarterback. He looks the sharpest. He's throwing the best ball. He seems to run your offense the best. It's kind of funny as I look at this thing because Luis Perez was a guy that started out in L.A., didn't work in L.A. They traded him to New York, and he was the third stringer, and he might actually be the best quarterback on the roster. And I would look to have him start this week. He seems to be the only guy that's bought into this system. I think that Williams kind of has, but Williams isn't really the guy. You see him throw the ball, and he's not really he's kind of mobile in that, but he's just not accurate enough for what you need with this system. And so I would like to see, them, give Perez a little bit more. I like Victor running hard, but when you don't got guys blocking and that on the line, and just felt like that St. Louis just kind of knew what they were going to do and just kind of came out and just, jumped on them. And New York didn't do well with it. And that's where the fun came in. The XFL and ESPN and Fox, this sideline access thing and everybody mic'd up is just fantastic. It's must-see TV. It is literally like the car wreck is happening on my TV screen and I cannot pull my eyes away. These guys are getting crazy on the sidelines. I mean, I don't know, the center 69 Selberman, good night. The man had like 15, unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. I'm exaggerating here, but they literally on both sides, we got to see it on both sidelines. For the St. Louis and for New York, they're talking about him, and the refs are talking to them about him, saying, listen, you need to get this guy under control or we're going to have to throw him out of the game. He's hot. We don't know what to do with him. And they're like going back and forth, and the head coaches are talking about this and that, and they end up benching the guy. And of course, they go back to, like, the crazy thing is, like, I think, it's ESPN that had it. And they have the audacity to keep going back and like showing him on the sidelines after they bench him. And, I'm just like watching this thing and like my mouth is just like this is great stuff. It's awesome. I'm just like glued to the TV watching this, and this thing is a blowout. There's no chance of New York getting back in this game, and they put in the backup. And number 77, Mama, or that's how you pronounce his name. He played well, to where I'm like, hey, maybe he should have started. And I don't know with that, but I'm just watching this and I'm like this is must-see TV. Like, this is great stuff here. Like, we're getting stuff we've never seen before in this game. And I know I'm talking about a blowout here and normally with a football game, I would just turn it off because we don't get any of this stuff. They don't give us what's happening on the sidelines. They don't tell us any of this stuff. They don't get any breakdowns. We don't get it, like any of that insider access stuff or things explained to us. We're getting all that right out in front, and we're even interviewing coaches and we're getting what the refs are talking about. And it really cool to me because you get to see the interactions with the refs and these teams and that there's more to these that's going on there. And, there's this give and this take, and they're really working things out, which is so much nicer than it just felt like it's so black and white. And there's like this veil between, the officiating and all of the coaching staff and everything that's happening in the NFL, especially. And, and then it just kind of, it breeds for, the transparency. It really is allowing me to allow the human aspect of the officiating to kind of come through and me be okay with it, because I'm seeing things being transparent and they're showing me everything, as opposed to everything behind closed doors. And I can't see it with the NFL, that when there are bad calls, it does make me question it because I don't know what's gone into the whole call and what they're seeing and how they're interpreting things. So I'm loving this. This is genius. This total access thing. I swear, I feel like this is what I felt like when all of that stuff was going down in the game and everybody's heated and, everything's blowing up on the New York sideline and they're chip-shotting everywhere and, fights are breaking out and we're getting all this. Like, I felt like it's like I'm walking into the room and my wife is watching like some housewives show, and I'm like they're like at some dinner party and they're all fighting. They're like cat fighting and yelling at each other and throwing things and stuff. And it's like I could care less about what's going on, but like my eyes are like fixed on that TV because you're waiting for somebody to get punched in the face, or you're waiting for, this thing to break out and they're yelling at each other up in each other's face. And you're like, you just can't put your eyes away from that stuff. I mean, it's like I said, it's crazy. And before you know it, you find yourself, you're standing there watching this stuff. And then they go back to their normal, gossip stuff and that. And you're like, whoa, you come back to reality. But that's kind of what I felt like in this game. It's just like I'm getting the inside stuff of this. And the other thing is it's like, too, like they're showing me these guys, right? So, after these guys score and stuff, they're getting the personalities. We're starting to figure out who these guys are, see who they are, and that. And it's really cool because then you're like, oh, that's a sweet dude. Like, and then you find yourself like rooting for them. And then before the end of the game, you're like cheering when they score again and they're up by like 30 and you're like, this is awesome. And you're like, wait a second, like what happened here? And it's just because they're doing a good job of telling the story that's happening throughout the game, and I really enjoyed it. Again, it was a blowout game. St. Louis is a really, really good team. They showed it. They pounded the ball. They did what they wanted to. And yeah, that was pretty much the end of the game. It was, for me, with this game, everything else besides the game was fantastic. I thought Joey Galloway was better today. I appreciated more what he did today. He didn't do as much of that, calling plays and trying to figure out and, say all that with it. So, it was that. I will say, let's go ahead and then let's move to the LA Wildcats and the DC Defenders. And listen, my hat's off to you. If you called this game, and I know that there were a few of you guys out there, And listen, I'll be honest with you. I was totally wrong about this game. I thought the DC Defenders were going to come out here and they were going to smack it to LA. Listen, everything for LA has been going south and it just hadn't worked out. And so I just figured it was just going to continue on that way. I got more respect for Moss after this week and what he's doing with that team. He seems to be really taking them in stride and figuring out what guys are buying into the system and what guys aren't. And he's putting the guys in there that are. And it looked fantastic. It looked great. Josh Johnson is a heck of a quarterback, and it showed. I mean, when you've got a guy who's 18 for 25, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had a heck of a game. And I think a lot of that had to do with they had Trey McBride. Trey McBride's been out of the past couple games just because he's been injured. And having him in there, man, made a big difference. And I think it made a big difference in that passing game. I think the other thing that made a big difference, and I feel bad saying this, is that Hood was injured and out of this game. Hood did not play this game, and it made all the difference in the world because Carter got in this game, and Goodnight Carter took over this game, and he loved every minute of it. And boy, did he love being on camera. And they loved having him on camera. Listen, he was a hot take every time. I mean, he gave them something good. And again, that gets back to, it's like you like seeing that. You like that with those guys and them interacting with the guys and talking about it and enjoying seeing them being excited on the sidelines. And it makes you kind of want to root for them. My man Cardell Jones, he had a bad day. But if you take the bad day that he had and the bad day that the Guardians had, like, you could tell the difference. Listen, and I so appreciated the commentators, Olsen working through this stuff. We got to see the behind the scenes of what we normally don't see. Remember, we got to see all of this stuff that's happening, the game inside of the game, whereas normally we don't get that stuff to where I would normally be turning the channel on this blowout. But because I'm actually getting the game inside of the game and what they're doing, how they're working on things, and there's more going on with that, and they're explaining it out to me, how they're working through things, and that like this stuff happens normally. It's only week 3. These things happen in a normal season, aka it happens in the NFL too, to all of you guys who are out there calling the XFL bad football. And again, you had one of the better guys that you said was one of the best guys, and I can tell you, I can be the first one to say this. I know that probably what will happen is that we will have somebody who didn't watch a dang snap of XFL football this past weekend who will this week, they'll have to do a bit on it, they'll do a segment on it, and they'll come out and say, because of what happened to Cardell Jones, this is just an example of why these guys aren't good enough to be in the NFL. And that's what's going to happen, and they're going to use that, and they're just going to use the stats and what they see on their screens and not actually get into the actual football of things. And the reality is that we've had 3 games, and this XFL thing is wide open, just like the NFL season is. After 3 games, it is wide open. And that does bring me to another point and something that I've been kind of saying over the weekend. And I just want to get this out here. And I know I'm bouncing around, but listen, these are instant reactions. So I can do whatever I want. I don't have to stay on script like I normally am in my videos. How scripted that is, you can be the judge with that. But this is the thing for me about the XFL and these guys trying to get back to the NFL. I really do want them to get back to the NFL, but the reality of it is for most of these guys, especially these quarterbacks, they get back to the NFL, they're not getting on the field. These teams have way too much money in these other quarterbacks to be putting a PJ Walker out there on the field. Now, who knows? He might. He's been so stinking dynamic and awesome. I don't know how you do not give that guy a shot out on the field. I really don't. But as I look at these things and as we go with it, what's going to happen is this guy's going to get buried on a depth chart. The best he'll be is a backup quarterback holding a clipboard. Now, granted, if he's a backup quarterback, he's probably making somewhere, upwards around $2 million a year, which is great money, especially compared to probably what they're making now. That's probably 8 times of what he's probably making right now. That's just, my take off of that, which kudos to him. But the sad part about it is, and this is really the sad part, is that we never get to see that again. We never get to see this dynamic football player zing the ball like he does. And if you remember, Jerry Glanville, what did he say? He said, I haven't seen a spiral like that since Joe Namath. Now, granted, the guy's been around for a whole long time, so he's seen a lot of quarterbacks. He's probably forgotten a lot more football than we'll probably ever know. So you kind of take that with a grain of salt. But if the guy is saying that, he is saying at least one thing, that this boy can sling a ball and he can throw a really pretty ball, and it shows. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose these dynamic players like him and Phillips and getting stuck on a roster where they're the second or third string, or they're stuck on a practice squad. I think that the XFL can get enough popularity to where they can buy those practice squad guys. What do I mean? Meaning they can pay the practice squad guys, like especially those skill players, more than what they would make on the practice squad to lure them away from the practice squad. And I think that some of these NFL teams would allow them to do that so that they can get reps, because they really need reps, a lot of these guys, to figure things out and to do that. Like Cardale Jones needed this game. He's never lost as a starting quarterback. This was the first time that he had lost as a starting quarterback. He needs to learn how to react to that. This was good for him in the long run. This loss was good for him. But the sad thing is if he goes back to an NFL team, he's not getting on the field. Unless just everything, all the wheels fall off, he's not getting back on the field. And the other thing is he threw 4 interceptions today. I'm a Cowboys fan. Listen, I've watched Tony Romo throw 5 interceptions in a game. And you know what? I would still have him as my quarterback. Why? Because he was a heck of a good quarterback. And some days you just have bad games. And Cardale Jones just had a bad game. Things just were not going for him or that offense. And LA just had their number today. Who knows? We'll see how things transpire if they can rebound. I think it'll be fun to see that. That'll be a nice storyline that we can go through next week with it. But man, this week was Saturday was really good football. It was fantastic. It was fun. If you missed the Tampa Bay-Houston game, you really missed a really, really good game. But Sunday was really all about the game inside of the game and really learning what's going on here with the XFL and all of this stuff with it. The St. Louis thing, man, that's awesome for the city, for the players, for everybody around St. Louis. Like that's just fun. And I'm so excited for all you guys, because you guys have put your heart and soul into this team, and it's paying off for you guys. So, I really liked seeing that. But the rest of this Sunday was all about the game inside of the game and seeing those things that we don't normally see and talking about these things that we normally don't get to talk about. And see, so everybody's goal is to get back to the NFL. But a lot of these players need reps. And that the other thing is I don't want these dynamic players getting buried on these depth charts. So for me, what do I say to that? This is what I say to all of that. I say, let's support the XFL. Let's put our energy into supporting it however you feel. But I'm not saying go out and buy everything. I'm not saying to go out and go to every game, but watch the games, look at the stuff, go to the website, check out the stats, watch the highlights, comment on the stuff, retweet it, talk about it on Facebook. Why? Because it builds up this league. It legitimizes this league. The thing is that you can only ignore the fans for so long, and the fans are starting to pile up. We're seeing it. The attendance is growing week after week after week, and if they do that, they're gonna get money. Businesses, companies are going to start to realize this, and they're going to start to put more money into the XFL. And what's going to happen is that they can start to pay these players more money, which means that they can start to get these guys who are dynamic, who are fun, but need reps, giving them a chance and a shot. And listen, this is also testing these guys too. A lot of these guys, all they've known is really kind of getting on a team, fighting for your life, and then failure. And they don't want to be gone again. And so we saw a lot of emotion coming out of these guys because they're used to not having a tomorrow. And so, as I'm watching these guys, especially the New York Guardians, I mean, they're desperate. You can see them out there, and these players, it's like they've been there before. Like they've been on that practice squad or they've been in that preseason game, and this is all that they've got their chance, and that was it, and it's done, and they don't want to see it happen again. Like that's what I saw in the eyes of these players. Like this is their shot. This is like last chance you. This is it for them, and they need to take advantage of it. And it's all falling apart in their face, and we're seeing the raw emotion that's out there, and that I appreciate that. And we're also getting like the raw stuff, like with the injuries and stuff. Man, my heart goes out to the DC Defenders lineman. Hopefully he'll be okay, with that. But just hearing the man just crying in agony, and you could hear it over all of the mics and the comms and stuff. Like that's real, man. I mean, it's funny. We didn't really see anything too graphic. I mean, you saw his leg bent in the replay and that with it, which, I've seen more gruesome stuff, but to hear that man's cries, it just kind of was just a little, chilling and that with it. So I'm really liking the XFL. And hopefully you guys are liking it too. We're getting football like we've never seen it before. I'm really loving it. I'm loving the insider access. I'm loving the game inside of the game, and it's fantastic to me. But if you don't get anything else from this video, get this from me. You need to support this league, especially for those fringe guys. I'm talking about those PJ Walkers. I'm talking about Cam Phillips. I'm talking about Landry Jones. I'm talking about Josh Johnson. I'm talking about Trey McBride. I'm talking about Nelson Spruce. These are guys. Austin Prohl. The list goes on and on and on. And Frazier from Seattle. I don't want to miss a whole lot of guys. Quentin Flowers, Devion Smith, Truesdale. I mean, as I'm looking at these things, Cameron Artis-Payne. I'm not. I've missed tons of guys, but these guys are athletes. Tonight we saw it with Carter. The starter goes down and he gets an opportunity and he shines. Listen, if you ask me, I would give him the start for the rest of the season. Off of that, he's played fantastic. And Hood has a fumbling problem anyways. Carter, to me, he was dynamic tonight. He was fun. He was electric, and that team rallied around him. And I would like to see more out of him. Hopefully that continues on. But that's what I'm saying. These guys are going to get buried if they go back to the NFL. And what happens is if we buy in to that whole narrative, they're not good enough for the NFL, this isn't the NFL, it's not up to the quality of the NFL, then we're going to lose spring football. So those of us who like to continue to watch football, you're not going to have football anymore. So you're going to lose out on more football. And what's going to happen is all these guys are going to be out of jobs from playing football again, so their dreams are completely crushed. If we actually put time and energy into it and support it the best that we can, however you want to, it doesn't have to be money. I've already put out, other ways that you can do that without even spending a dollar of your own dime. And we talked about, listen, even watch the streams that people have on YouTube that are streaming it, because trust me, the big networks, they see that. And if people are watching it, they know that there's fans and that people want that product. We'll see what the TV ratings are like when they come out here in a couple days, and we'll talk about that then. But support it. Any way you can, support it. Because if you don't, then they're just going to kill this league like everything else. It's not going to get any more money. Investors aren't going to invest in it. Sponsors aren't going to sponsor it. Advertisers aren't going to advertise in it, and it's going to die. We're going to lose spring football. These guys are going to lose their jobs. And the reality of it is if we put more into the XFL football, what will happen is more money will come in, and these guys will make more in return for that, to where maybe they can pay these guys and keep these guys and keep a PJ Walker, to where it would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? If he was the franchise quarterback, because they were able to pay him that kind of money to keep him around and keep him, buried again on, Indianapolis's depth chart and never get to see the light of day again on a football field, and the access and all that we're getting, support the XFL, put it out there, tell your friends, tell your family to tune in, try it out. I know it's not for everybody, but at least try it. You might actually find that you enjoy it and you like it. I know I enjoy it. I know I like it. And yes, I'll admit, it's not the NFL, but man, it's some fun football. They've got some really good athletes that are showing up and shining, and it's fun. But if you let the narrative be that the NFL is the end-all, be-all, and if it's not the NFL, then it doesn't have a place, then what we've all lost. And pretty much, the arrogant people that are at the networks that already have all of their stuff and have already made up their minds, then they win. That's pretty much it. You've just allowed and you've credited their arrogance. Yep, that's what we do. So let's band together. Let's enjoy XFL football. Let's share it out there, and let's have fun with it, because it is fun. It's fantastic. It is awesome. It's football and everything you would want around football, and that's fun. All right, listen, I know I've rambled on for long enough. Hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully you've got something out of it. Leave me a comment down in the comment section. If you got something else you want to talk about, I'll discuss it with you down there. All right, guys, let's get on out of here, because I know that you're busy and I know that I'm busy. Let's get on out of here. Have a good night.